Bonjour YouTube, welcome back with another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about the new Stygian Onslaught that just released today as I'm posting this video. So the new Stygian just opened 1 week after the new patch, and you will be able to discover 3 new bosses in the Stygian that are very fun, and you'll enjoy the combat so much. It's going to be incredible. As you could see in the open world, there is this boss that we had at the start of this patch, the Frostnight Herra, Hatred and Rage, that I already made a guide about in a previous video. You can check that out, but I will re-explain the mechanics and how to beat this boss again in this video. We got the Lightkeeper from the open world, like the local legend that we meet through like world quests and stuff like that. This guy is also in the Spire Abyss, and I already explained in my previous Spire Abyss guide how to beat it, but I'll do it again in this video. And then third boss in the Stygian Onslaught is going to be the Veteran Frost Operative. So it's like similar as to one in the open world. It will apply some Bone of Life on you and apply a bunch of debuffs. This is the Cryo Operative here, so it's going to apply also a cryo debuff on you, which makes you slower with your normal attacks and stuff, so you got to keep that in mind. But I will go over the mechanic a little bit later. We'll go first over the HP on each bosses. So first, let's go over the mechanics of each boss. I will show at the same time on the screen a little bit how it works, but let's go over the mechanics and how much HP they have. So first, the Frostnight Herra has 8 million HP almost in fearless difficulty and about 13 million in dire difficulty. So if you're able to clear fearless difficulty in about 80 seconds, you have some chances to clear dire difficulty in just on time. But if you're faster than 80 seconds on fearless, like, it's most likely doable for you to clear dire. And so this boss, basically what happens with this boss is that at the start of the fight, it will enter a high res phase, where it will have that white gauge on the screen that you can see. You have to fill that gauge with instances of damage, with elemental damage, and you can fill that gauge with up to 50 instances of damage. You will need to hit the bosses 50 times, whether it's physical damage or elemental damage, to fill that gauge. And once this gauge is filled, the boss will enter the element that you dealt the most damage with. So if you dealt more dendro damage to the boss during that phase, it will gain Dendro Infusion and Dendro Immunity, so you will not be able to deal Dendro damage ever again. The only way to do it, to change that, to avoid the boss entering any special element, is to fill the gauge with Lunar damage. So Lunar Charge at the moment and Lunar Bloom are the only 2 possibilities. So if you deal Lunar damage to fill that gauge, instead it will not infuse any element and will not be immune to any element. Now, the good thing, or the bad thing, depending which angle you see it, is that Lunar damage will fill this gauge much faster. Every instances of Lunar damage will count as 6 instances of damage. So instead of having to do 50 hits, you will only need to do 9 hits with Nefer or Flins. As you can guess, like, Llama is not enough because she only has her skill that deals once Lunar Bloom damage, and then after that you have to wait. So Nefer and Flint are going to be the best ones to fill that gauge, but there are other solutions as well, and I'll go over that afterwards. The boss will enter that phase at the start of the fight and at about 1 minute into the fight as well, so you just got to keep that in mind. You will have to redo that phase, so don't waste your cooldowns when the boss will enter that phase again. Make sure you don't start using your burst and stuff when he's going to have that 120% resistance increase. Now, second boss, we have Sigurd. So the same Lightkeeper as the one in the Abyss and as the one in the open world. In terms of HP, he's going to have 3.3 million HP times 2 because he has the White Hunt HP bar as well in fearless difficulty, and then 8.2 million HP times 2 in dire difficulty. So if you have Flint in fearless difficulty, it's going to be even easier than the Shield Nefer boss here. As you can see here, I cleared in 68 seconds with Flynn's C0 Ino, and then here I cleared with 89 seconds. So it's not really hard if you have Flynn's, even if you don't have Inefa. So basically what's going to happen with this boss is that if you have the Moonsign Ascending Gleam, which means 2 Nokrai character in your team, it's going to be much easier. The HP while he's in the Wild Hunt state will be able to go down while you damage the main HP bar as well. So it's going to make it much easier because The boss basically has 3 HP bars if you don't have any Nocrai character in your team, if you don't have 2 Nocrai character in your team. Because as you can see here, when you damage the Wild Hunt form without 2 Nocrai characters, the gray bar will not move until you finish the main red HP bar, which is going to waste you a ton of time. So having the Moon Sign, Ascendant Gleam is very, very important, unless, of course, you have a ton of damage, but it's going to be very hard for F2P players without double Nocrai to clear this. Now, the good thing is every time you break that red HP bar, it will deal a chunk of damage to the gray bar, but it's still going to be much, much slower than if you have 2 Nocrai characters. After you break the first main HP bar, he will enter the Wild Hunt state and summon 2 mini Wild Hunt enemies that after a while he's going to absorb them to regenerate his gray HP bar. So if you have AoE, you want to kill those 2 little monster. Otherwise, you can just focus him and break the red HP bar again and again. It will stagger him. It will pause his attack that will regenerate his gray bar. And it's basically going to cancel this special attack. So you can also just focus him, especially if you don't have a lot of AoE or if you don't have flints. It's going to be much more valuable to focus the boss. Also, this attack absorbing the mini monsters will deal a ton of damage, so you want to get far away from the boss if you're not able to cancel it. Finally, the Veteran Frost Operative. Arguably, if you don't have any Nocrai character, it might be one of the hardest boss as well. It might be the hardest boss this rotation, honestly, because like the first boss you can manage without Nocrai. Sigurd is a bit hard without Nocrai, but this one, even with Arlecchino, even with Bone of Life characters, it's going to be a tough one. So this boss has about 7.1 million HP on Fearless difficulty and about 14 million HP in Dire difficulty. So it's the most HP in this Stygian, especially in Dire. At least in Fearless, it's similar to the first boss, but in Dire, it's the highest amount of HP. This enemy at the start of the fight will gain a shield equal to 22.5% of her max HP. And once you break that shield, it will basically deal that amount of damage to her main HP bar, which is about 1.6 million HP. This boss will also continuously apply Bond of Life to all your characters, so you will not be able to heal very well against this boss, and it will also apply some Cryo Aura on your character if you get hit by the attack of the boss. So it's going to be a tough one. You have to dodge the attacks as much as possible because getting the Cryo Aura, getting the Bond of Life is going to make it very, very difficult. Even with Shilonen Bennett, it's hard to heal that much Bond of Life. Now, if you have Arlecchino or if you have Chlorine, you can clear that Bond of Life pretty easily, but Arlecchino, for example, is also very, very vulnerable when she tries to deal damage. So this boss continuously apply Bond of Life. You can't heal properly, and you have to use your burst with Arlecchino to be able to clear that Bond of Life. So it is pretty tough. Chlorine is a bit easier, I guess, to clear that Bond of Life, but she has less damage than Arlecchino, so there's this. This is a very difficult fight, and you have to dodge the attacks as much as possible to not get bonked and not take too much damage and be able to heal, especially from that Bone of Life. And every time you clear the shield of this boss, it will regain the shield after a few seconds. So you have to be very, very fast when breaking the shield. Now, I will go over gameplay tips for each fight in a bit, so don't worry about that. Yeah, this one is a bit tricky. So as mentioned in one of my previous guide on this boss, there are multiple ways to fight this boss and play around the mechanic of this boss. So of course, if you have Nefer, Lama to beat this boss, and if you have Lunar damage, it's going to be much, much easier. But if you don't have any Lunar character, there are other solutions. As mentioned in the explanation of the kit of the boss, it will infuse the boss with the element that dealt the most damage to the boss during that phase. So let's say you are playing Mawika, for example, and you want to melt with Mawika. The strategy would be to apply as much cryo damage as possible during that phase, so the boss will infuse cryo, and then you will be able to perma-melt with Mawika. So as you can see here, I will be playing double cryo just to try to apply as many cryo damage as possible against that in that gauge, and also apply a lot of cryo as fast as possible. You can see it's a bit slow if you don't have Lunar Charge. 50 instances of damage is a lot. Hopefully, Escoffier did enough damage. So you can see here the boss is permanently infused with cryo until the next phase. Now, what I can do is I can use the rest of my team, and then I can just perma-melt with Mawika. You can see here, boom, every I mean, given ICD, every hit is going to melt on the boss every time. One funny thing to note as well is that physical damage will basically act the same as lunar damage, except you still need to do 50 instances of damage. But once you break the shield with physical damage, you will see that he's not going to gain any element infusion, and he's not going to have any immunity to any element, basically. So here I'm going to use Zhongli because he has some of the fastest normal attacks. Some people, I think I've seen a video of someone clearing it with physical Zhongli or something like that. Maybe it was in the open world, but you can see here with physical damage, the boss has no elemental infusion, and you can just do your regular stuff. So that can also be a strategy. I don't think it's the best, but if you don't have a lot of options, that's something you can explore. Regarding this boss, that's basically the strategy. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy if you don't have lunar reactions, because really, almost 8 million HP is freaking crazy. It's a lot of HP. It's like 2 million more than the Drake on the last Stygian, so it's a ton. If you don't have the shield character for this, it's going to be tricky. Mawika can probably do it. I mean, Mawika can do it, but the other characters, you will struggle unless you have very, very good builds. So yeah, good luck. All right, so regarding Sigurd, the second boss of the Stygian, there's not a lot of strategies, unfortunately. If you have two Nokrai character, it's going to be much, much easier. So any combination of two Nokrai character, it doesn't have to be Flint or Nefer. You don't necessarily have to have like a DPS for this. It's going to be much easier with Nefer and Flint, but you don't necessarily need them. Lama, Aino, or Inefa, Aino are going to be enough. Now, if you don't have them, you want high single target DPS. So, for example, a Skirk team can be pretty good. This boss has freeze resistance, but you can still, I mean, you don't need to freeze it necessarily, but just having a high single target DPS is going to be pretty nice. Be careful with his attack. You can see here is his burst attack here, kind of similar to Keqing burst, that will do AoE electro damage. You want to dodge that with a burst or by going away from his range. You can't really just dash to dodge it because it's a bit too long. And then after that, you just want to DPS as much as possible on single target. Skirk is going to be nice. Mawika is going to be nice. He dashes a lot as well, so you got to be a little bit cringe. And then you want to set up your DPS for when the red HP bar is about to go down and disappear. So you can actually start dealing as much damage as possible. You see here, I have like 3 seconds, 4 seconds of DPS window after breaking the red HP bar. You want to set up for this so you can deal as much damage and reduce his max HP as much as possible. And after that, he's going to summon 2 zombies. You don't really have to worry too much about them. Like, if you're able to kill them, it's nice because otherwise he's going to absorb them and recover his max HP. But if you have a lot of single target DPS, you see I interrupted his move by just killing him and killing his main HP bar. And if you have a bit of AoE, you can see you can still kill the minions on the side while DPSing the boss. And after that, yeah, you just need as much damage as possible. There's not like a ton of, unfortunately, a ton of strategies. The freeze helps a little bit to delay his moves, but it's not like crazy. You see here, even by stalling a little bit, I managed to almost kill it. So a good Skirk can definitely do it. My build is really bad, by the way. So you can see here, 79, 130. It's not terrible, but yeah, we have like mid sands, mid flower, mid feather. Circlet is absolute trash, and Goblet is all right, but it's not really that great. So with a very solid Skirk build and enough energy on Escoffier, because I was missing my burst many times, with a bit more Favge, maybe Tenacity on Farina and Fav on Yelan, it's really doable with Skirk C0 R1. Even Skirk without R1, I think, can do it properly. But yeah, high single target DPS. Alakino can work, Mawika can work. Some other characters can potentially work, but you need a lot of damage. You need a lot of damage. Bro has basically 6.6 million HP just from the gray bar and the first red bar. And after that, every time he recovers the red bar, it adds up to the HP. So first time is probably going to be like 70%, and then another 30% or something. So yeah, it's about 3 times 3.3 million. So it's a lot. It's a lot of HP. All right, and finally we have the operative that is actually like also super hard. On top of the fact that it puts a lot of bone of life, you can see here I just started the fight. I already have full bone of life on Arlecchino, which is nice for Arlecchino and Cloran because you won't have to worry about like managing your bone of life properly. But this boss moves a lot. This boss moves a lot. You see it used a little bit of HP to apply the bone of life as well on me at the start, but it's just like a tiny bit of HP. But this boss moves a lot. You can see here, boom, spin, dash. You cannot heal, basically, other than with Arlecchino Burst. And it deals a lot of damage. You cannot melt on the shield as well. So you can see here, even if I had the Silali Aura, I would not be able to melt on the boss. And when you kill the shield, it will take 1.6 million damage, at least in fearless difficulty. After that, if you're able to melt once the shield is down, but you can see here, it's going to get the shield back really fast. It already got the shield back, and I cannot melt anymore. I'll try to show you if that the melt doesn't work. You'll see that the amount of damage that I deal to the shield is basically the same whether I melt or not. So here, boom. And then you can see here, I'm not doing more damage than earlier to the shield. It's literally the same despite melting. So the reactions, it's the same as the previous Fatui boss shield. The reactions don't really work. And yeah, you need to try to set up your DPS for when you break the shield so you can actually deal as much damage as possible, not like I did here. Arlecchino is happy with this mob because lots of bone of life, but you can see here, if you're a tiny bit slow, even with Arlecchino, it's not that easy. This Arlecchino is not that great, but still, it should be much easier with a shield character, I feel like. So yeah, this boss, kind of tricky. Make sure you set up your rotation for when the shield is down. So try to keep the shield a little bit up. Get your burst back. You can start your rotation as soon as you break the shield because the window is really short. And try to dodge the attack that applies a lot of cryo, because if you don't have Bennett, for example, you will have the cryo aura and it will delay your damage quite a bit. I mean, it will delay your speed of like normal attacks or even Mawika spins or stuff like that. So it can be really bad. And then other than that, Cloran can work as well, but that's basically like Cloran Arlecchino can work pretty well, but this is fearless and I was struggling a little bit. So yeah, this one is going to be tough. It's also a lot of HP. It is 7 million HP, so it's not easy either, and it moves a lot. And the shield, even though the shield deals a decent amount of damage, you need to set up your rotation properly. Here are my team recommendations. For the first boss, if you have any Nokrai team with 2 Nokrai character, you should keep that for this specific boss, because the second one is easier to kill even without Nokrai characters. It has a little bit more HP technically with all the HP bars, but also it takes some damage when you break the HP bar, where this first boss here, if you don't have Lunar Bloom or Lunar Charge damage, the gauge is really long to fill with 50 hits, honestly. So even if you have like Yelan, Xingqiu, stuff like that, like it's hard to have a team that can deal 8 million HP while also filling that gauge fast. So I would highly recommend keeping that Nokrai team for this. Otherwise, if you don't have any Nokrai character at all, Mawika Melt is going to be pretty solid on this first boss. So Mawika Melt, you can either do with double cryo like Silali Escoffier, as I showed earlier. It is still going to be very hard without Nokrai character at all. I'm telling you, like, I was struggling. I only managed to do it technically with Mawika here, but if you have... Of course, my builds are not really good here. The energy recharge on some characters is a bit low as well, so you got to keep that in mind. But yeah, the best team at the moment that I figured out, that I found, is Mawika Melt. So that you can also do Varesa Overload with Mawika if you have. Otherwise, you can do with Shengling. Just fill the gauge with Pyro, and then your Varesa can Perma Overload with Chevreuse and whatever else you have. Chevreuse also applies a lot of pyro to the gauge, so you can do Varesa, Yansan, or Oron, and then Shengling Chevreuse, and it's going to be honestly one of the other good teams against that boss. So yeah, overall, I would keep your strongest team for Frostnight Herra. Even if you don't have Nokrai characters, then just bring your strongest team and see how it goes. As I said, Varisa Overload, Mawika Melt can work. You can also try, if you have a good Kinich, you can try Kinich Burn. Basically, just apply a little bit of Dendro. So you can do, like, for example, triple Dendro with Bennett, and then just fill the gauge with Burn with Bennett Nahida, so you don't deal too much Dendro damage. Because I tried with Emily, but Emily deals too much damage. So try with Bennett, or maybe Bennett Shangling or Bennett Mawika to apply a lot of, to burn while doing a lot of Pyro. So the boss will be infused with Pyro for the rest of the fight, and then Kinich can just DPS as much as possible. If you have a good Kinich, it might be doable, honestly, so give it a try. Now, regarding the second boss, regarding Sigurd, same thing. If you have Neferlama, if you have Flint's Inifa, or like I know, this is going to be best for this boss. Of course, if you use it for the first boss and you don't have anything else, then you have to choose something else. As mentioned earlier, Skirk freeze is going to be great. Also, the freeze can delay a little bit the actions of the boss, so it's kind of nice. And give you a bit more DPS window. Mawika Melt is gonna be great as well. She has a ton of damage. She's working fine. Chaska is also very solid as a single target DPS with, especially if you have a premium team with Farina, Silali, it's gonna be great. Arlecchino Overload or Arlecchino Melt can also make it. And then after that, any other character that has high single target DPS, Varesa can work. Chlorand potentially can work if you have a good Chlorand. So you have some options, honestly, against Sigurd. It can feel pretty bad, but honestly, like, if you have a good single target DPS team, honestly, it's going to be all right. Any of the teams that I mentioned should be able to clear pretty well. And now for the last boss, who is like the second hardest, but can be the hardest depending the state of your account. For the Veteran Frost Operative, as mentioned earlier, Arlecchino is going to be one of the best options. Arlecchino Melt, Arlecchino Overload. So either with Silali or with Fischl Chevreuse, stuff like that. You can do Chlorand, Hyper Chlorand, or Aggravate Chlorand potentially. I tried Chlorand. Wait, which one did I try? I tried Chlorand, Fischl, Yelan Shilonen, I think, and I was kind of close with like pretty mid build, so it is doable with this team. If you do Aggravate, you can give it a try. You can try Overload as well. Varesa, of course, she doesn't use the Bone of Life, but she has a ton of single target damage. Varesa can work as well. Unfortunately, Skirk is not going to work because the boss has a decent amount of cryo resistance. The bosses don't have really any resistance to any element other than like if they infuse or something like the first boss. This boss, on the other hand, has cryo resistance. 7 million HP, so you need a lot of damage. You can try with, if you have a good Navia, if you have some constellations on some characters, it is worth a try. You cannot vape or melt on the shield, so Walani is going to struggle for sure. Yeah, the key as well to this fight is to be able to dodge the attacks and the cryo aura that she will apply on you, because it will mess up your gameplay quite a bit. Especially if you have high ping, as I have here, it's really hard to deal with the cryo aura slow plus the slow ping. So yeah, but other than that, that's basically it for my team recommendations. I'll put a recap on the screen after that, and yeah. So yeah, that's basically it for this guide. I will not put more showcase in this video. I will do a separate video with different team showcases to like show you that you can clear these bosses with different teams. It was not easy for sure. Like, this is a really, really hard Stygian. Of course, this is the first day, so I don't really necessarily have all the strats, even though I was able to test early access, etc. But it's still pretty early in the rotation. So, of course, we'll find probably new strategies over time, maybe even for the Herra, the Frostnight Herra, that is the hardest this rotation, in my opinion. Maybe we'll find some new strategy to fill the gauge faster and not waste too much time. I could not think of anything yet. I tried like the strat we did back then with the burn with Ember or stuff like that. Yelan Qingchuo maybe can be enough. I will show that as well in future videos, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. I hope this guide was helpful. Let me know what's your performance in the Stygian Onslaught. Hopefully it wasn't too difficult for you, And I'll see you guys on Twitch or on the next video. Bye-bye.